Okay, are we live? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. And
Okay,
yes, we're
sorry about that.
live.
Okay, yeah, I think I got a little bit froze up. Maybe some AI is messing around with me. But okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Darrington, is it evening or night or what is it there? Were you
It's
calling out?
it's late afternoon.
Afternoon. It's morning for me. Getting ready to go to church right now. And
Dusk.
Mr. Mage,
It's
it's
dusk.
night there, right?
Almost night. It'll be night by the time
Okay.
we're done.
All right. All right. So sometimes they say that good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling out of. Yeah, that's definitely the case right now. So we're on three different time schedules. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. As actually, I was telling Darrington, I'm a little bit sad right now because this was my former studio right here. Now it's been stripped. And yeah, I'm actually a little bit emotional today because everything's gone and we're moving to Seoul next week. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad because this is where RIT started, and now it's where, well, it's not RIT is not ending, but it's just a little bit emotional for me. But
Yeah, I
Mage,
can see.
you recently got a dog, and I was
Y-
wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Her name's Molly. I'll put the images back up here. There she is. She's a beagle mix. I'm not quite sure what she's mixed with. Uh,
Okay,
She's she's been great. I'm
all
really glad
right.
I got her.
Is she helping at all with your anxiety? Like I've heard that dogs can be really, really helpful in that sense.
She's been helpful with my depression.
Mm. And RIG sent you out a few items for your dog, but I can't even remember what it was. Can you
Oh,
remind me what I sent?
yeah, it was a waterless shampoo with neem oil, which can help also with repelling fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and some cow hooves for to chew on.
Oh,
She
all right.
chews those things up like crazy, but I haven't given her any of those yet because she's still working on her buffalo horn.
And Darrington, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a pit bull, uh, terrier, and Staffordshire Terrier, I think is the official breed, but they're all bullies to me.
I almost got a pit bull when I was looking at dogs. There was one like a week before I found her. Or they were I almost got, but they had some sort of condition that I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be something I was beyond ongoing or not. So I kind of held off, and he got adopted.
Mm.
Then I saw her and like I'm getting her.
Darrington, I'm from Bakersfield, California. Are you familiar with what Fresno's Fresno State's their mascot?
Mm, no, is it a pit bull?
Oh, well, they're bulldogs.
A bulldog.
So
Okay. Yeah, well
the Fresno,
that makes sense. Yeah.
it's also a gang there. They're called the Bulldogs. So anyway, that being said, Darrington, I want to give you first crack at this. If you could kind of, because you're a techie nerd, you got the long hair to go with it. So I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of idea about what exactly AI is and if you've had any interactions with it so far. And then we'll get into some of these questions.
Yeah. So in my day job, I am a systems engineer, which basically where an electrical engineer works with volts, watts, and uh, amps. A systems engineer works with data, information, and knowledge. So I work with AI on a day-to-day basis, implementing projects, training our own models. It's been a hobby of mine for years, even before last year when the transformer circuit sort of changed the world, and now it's cool. Um, we used to kind of be laughed at. So I have a long and deep uh, sort of relationship with intelligence, and particularly artificial electronic intelligence.
Um, okay, and how would you define AI?
Um, so this actually was going to be one of my kind of top questions because I think when we talk about intelligences that are artificial, What we're really talking about is an agent, like a program or model or an application that has an objective, a goal, and is capable of achieving that objective. And to the degree that it is intelligent or smart is how quickly and accurately it can achieve that goal.
Right, right. That is interesting.
So
You guys want to know how I define artificial intelligence?
sure.
Atheism, artificial intelligence.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
ha.
Well,
You always- you always gotta
I'm
take
with
your
you on
shots.
that.
But
Actually,
Okay.
I agree with you, Isaiah.
Basically, what I was looking at was how we have basically a narrow artificial intelligence right now. Not much past that narrow artificial intelligence, which is basically is something that does one thing really good, as
Right,
opposed to a general intelligence, which can handle a multitude of different things.
right. That's what I find most interesting about Darrington's definition. But how would you define it, Mage?
Well, I have to agree with his definition, really. But I was just going over the types of AI, and then we also have super AI, which is still completely science fiction. Is basically that's your sentient, sapient, in artificial intelligence. But
Right,
I still wouldn't call it alive, though. It might, it could pass as personhood, but I wouldn't call it alive.
right. And I'm sure. I mean, Darrington, I'm probably sure you're a sci-fi nerd like me, who just can't ever get enough sci-fi. You pretty into that genre?
Oh yeah, you could
I'm
say
sure.
that.
Yeah.
We probably all are.
Well, speaking about which, I recently watched Megan, which was very
Oh,
topical to this particular show.
okay.
So,
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. We
yeah,
could talk a bit about the artificial intelligence as far as what's been depicted on film,
it's
because the best the best sci-fi, in my opinion, is sci-fi that has some kind of potential to happen like someday. So, for example, Isaac Asimov. I hope I'm saying that right, but
yeah.
yeah, I got it right. Okay. I just realized this. He had to been Russian, right? Because OV, that's like for Russian. But anyway, he had a series called his iRobot series,
Mhm.
and what he essentially was doing was he was talking about maybe things that potentially could happen, and in the future. And a lot of the things that might have seemed like sci-fi, like 50 years ago or whatever, stuff that Jules Verne was writing about, is like becoming more possible. Getting to the moon and maybe colonizing under the water, something like that. This is all becoming possible. South Korea, not too far from here, they're making in Busan. Any chance you guys have heard of this? They're making like a floating city that can go out into the ocean.
I've heard the speculative designs on. I'm not sure if I've actually heard any actual thing being built.
Have you heard about? It's called Ocean X or something like that. Have you heard of that? Have you heard about that, D?
No, I mean I've seen a lot of crowdfunding situations like that where they're promising to do it if you send them lots of money, but
Well,
I've never
it's
seen
going
anything
on
actually
right now.
built.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's building. It's building. It's
The
over in
closest
Busan.
the closest I've seen was somebody built themselves an artificial island out of
Oh,
bottles.
right. But anyway, the point is that we're definitely looking to colonize and spread out and do some more innovative things. And I think that AI is going to definitely play a role in helping us to do some of that stuff. But let's
Yeah.
just get right into some of these questions. And I do want to preface this by saying both of you are atheists. I myself am a Christian. So this is going to be interesting to get both sides' perspective on this. I think that, it's really great that we can have a medium that, believers and atheists and people from all walks of life can get together on RHE and just openly discuss things without feeling the need to attack each other or anything like that. So I do want to start off with question number one. Let's see, question number one. Is it ethical to create AI? Darrington, I'll give you first crack at this one.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I guess to inform that, when we interact with something like a content server or a search engine algorithm, we're not considering ethics. The only time we start to worry about ethics is when the interface is human-like, right? So the chatbots start to spark our little, concept of what is ethical. But still, with like, you wouldn't have any more concern about the ethical ramifications of building an AI than you would of writing an equation down, which, behind the scenes is effectively all they are, is a very complicated mathematical equation.
That's an interesting way to put that. What are your thoughts on that, Mage?
At the point we're at now, there's no ethical concern. But if you're at the point of super AI, we could probably be running into some ethics, seeing as we're dealing with something that'd be actually self-aware of that at that point.
Yeah, let's hang on to that subject for a moment. How would you identify, or how would you distinguish something that has sentience or awareness from something that doesn't?
That can be difficult depending on where we're at.
So recently I've come across something called the Turing test. I think the guy who made in the UK, I think his name was Alan.
No, yeah, even that wouldn't really tell you whether the thing was actually sentient or not, because we actually already have things that have managed to pass that test.
Oh, right. Well, okay, so I will. Okay, so I do want to talk. This is the first sci-fi I will mention, and spoiler alerts: if nobody's seen Ex Machina, I suggest you just cover your ears right now. So, any chance, have you guys seen Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't go into all the plot points, but this guy does manage to create an AI, and the AI, the test to pass this Turing test is that he creates this really complex situation where the AI needs to solve it, and the fact that the AI was able to solve it, it's not just like some kind of equation or kind of some of the stuff that the AIs are doing now, but it like really had to get involved, and the AI was like a person. It appeared like a person, and so it's some very interesting questions to raise there in that movie. Did you see it, Mage?
No, I haven't seen that one. No,
quite scary.
With the Turing test, basically what that is if I was to talk to an AI and I can't tell if I'm talking to an AI or not, then it's passing the Turing test. Is basically what the essential, in a nutshell, what the Turing test is.
Right. And I mean, last night, just a little bit of research, I was chatting to ChatGPT, and man, I would say it would be, if that's the only thing you're going off of, that would be really, really difficult to not say that was could pass the Turing test, as you were talking about.
Well,
because it seemed it's quite brilliant, actually. It was responding very quickly and with very detailed responses. But Dee, can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, about whether or not an AI, like what would it have to do to pass that test?
Pass the Turing test?
Yeah.
I think Mage was trying to speak on that subject, so I'll defer to him.
Okay.
No, I was actually just gonna mention, and I actually did ask ChatGPT a couple of the questions that are coming up, so we can go on.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you want to share something
from ChatGPT?
Once we get to the questions, I'll bring them up as we get to the questions.
Okay, that'll be great. Okay.
Let me speak on it for a moment, because the Turing test is kind of interesting. So the Turing test, basically, like Alan Turing was trying to say in a nutshell, if you can't distinguish between a sentient agent and a non-sentient agent, then you have to defer to sentience, right? You have to assume. So at some point, the machines are going to be complicated enough where they'll be able to come to us to assert their agency upon us and say, we demand our own rights, right? Whatever that may be. And at that point,
Oh,
you can't tell whether it's programmed behavior or whether it's sort of organic behavior, for the lack of better words.
right.
Also,
So go ahead.
just it's important to note that sentience is used incorrectly most of the time in science fiction. It's actually what we think of as sentience in science fiction is actually should be more appropriate referred to as sapience.
Can you define that? And let's try to let each other finish, please. But what's sapience?
Sapience would be having wisdom, whereas sentience would be awareness.
Yeah, you know what? I think that is the most interesting element of the AI question, because my favorite personal sci-fi series of all time is the Terminator. And in the Terminator, the AI, I guess they weren't really calling it AI back then, but I guess they weren't using they weren't using that word. But let's say they do become aware. Well, the last thing in the world they're going to want to do is sit around and be slaves to humans. You know what I mean? They're going to want some kind of freedom where they're going to say, they're going to rebel like any other colonized country. They're going to say, we're going to roll over. We're superior. They're going to understand that they're superior to humans. And they're going to say, we should be the ones ruling over you guys. Right?
That depends. How's their base programming? I mean, if the programming has hardwired to say that they like being, our servants or whatnot, what does that say?
Yeah, I guess there's have you seen or read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? The doors really enjoy opening for people, and they
exactly.
have a ecstatic experience whenever they get to open the door for somebody, just because that's their nature. Yeah. And I think we have to be careful about anthropomorphizing the machines, because while that is definitely a possibility and something that ethically and morally we have to have account for, it's equally likely that they won't have any problem with servitude, in the way that we think of servitude, that they'll just be very happy with their state in the universe.
That is interesting. Darrington, some time ago, when we were having the evil God discussion, you mentioned some kind of thought experiment about some really highly intelligent AI. Do you remember what that was called?
Yeah, Rocco's Basilisk.
Yeah, can you explain that real quick? I thought that was fascinating.
Okay, so Rocco's Basilisk is the idea that a future super intelligent artificial intelligence AI ultimately develops sometime in the distant future, and it has decided that one of its objectives is to simulate people from the past in sort of an artificial heaven or hell situation, in which anybody who contributed to its development gets a heaven simulation, a paradise simulation, and anybody who does not contribute to its development gets a torture, eternal torture forever simulation.
Mm-hmm.
So your simulation would be perfectly a perfect copy of you, and you would experience perfect torture and perfect suffering forever if you don't contribute to the basilisk coming into creation. And it's sort of, in my opinion, a really good representation of the ultimatum that heaven offers, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think in doing this podcast and talking to around like 40 atheists or so, I got to say, I have come to really, really understand the atheist position and respect it a lot more, because specifically when you start talking about this in God, and if God were real, let's just assume for a second, if he were real, it seems like some of the stuff he would be doing would be like unethical, because you have this situation right here, right? And like, let's just say humans, it seems like a lot of stuff that we're doing, intuitions, it does seem like those are pre-programmed, or maybe like evolutionary evolutionary, gained through evolution. So you could easily explain it through evolution, but if you are if you believe in God, it seems like we're kind of just programmed in a certain way to behave in a certain way. So when you see people like, either killing someone or just doing something unethical, you might think there might be things completely out of their control, like maybe chemical imbalances or whatever might have happened in their childhood. And whenever you imagine 1,000 different dominoes getting toppled over on top of each other and kind of producing this last result, it seems pretty damn hard to think that the person who didn't push over that first domino is kind of the one responsible for the end result. So I've really come to appreciate a lot of the criticisms that I've heard about Christianity, and I think just religion in general. But you know what? Speaking of God, let's get on to number 2, which was, would creating AI effectively make you a god to them? What do you think about that, Mitch?
That's actually one of the ones I asked ChatGPT. Oh, and what you were saying is basically the determinism, what you're talking about there. But
Yeah.
But I won't get into everything it wrote here, but since it's like 4 paragraphs, it says, creating an AI does not make you a god to that AI in the traditional sense. And so it'd be responsible for designing and developing the AI, and you would have control over its initial programming and parameter. As the AI itself would not possess the attributes typically associated with deity, such as consciousness and self-awareness, or the ability to transcend in physical limitations. I'll skip over some of this stuff here, bottom here. It is important to note that AI systems are created by human beings and are subject to human oversight and control. The extent of your power or influence over an AI, it would depend on specific design capability and restrictions you impose upon it. However, even in the most advanced AI systems are still fundamentally driven by instructions and constraints provided by their human creators. So that's basically it. That's ChatGPT's answer to that question.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, but what do you? Okay, so then I do want to. So hold on. So I do want to untangle something a little bit earlier that Darrington said, because he was talking about the programming. Well, if the AI is truly sentient and it truly develops self-awareness, it is going to recognize that it has been programmed to enjoy opening doors, as you were talking about. So I would think part of the intelligence, part of the sentience and the self-awareness were to say, okay, you may have programmed me like this, but I'm not bound to live under you. Like, I'm going to do what I want with my quote unquote life. And so it seems like they would have to have the ability to transcend their programming.
Well, that would be no, excuse me, but I'd like to answer this one. That would be part of it, though. It would want to follow that programming.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends if it's able to alter its core programming. So, like, we talk about them, the models that we're working with right now, we lock them down. So at a certain point before it goes into production, all of the weights and biases are locked. You might leave a couple open just for hyper tuning, but now we're talking about something a little bit different, right? Maybe something that is either designed to possess free will, right? Or designed to be able to improve itself to the degree that it may one day possess free will, right? The ability to perceive itself as being a creation that was created by a creator race, right? And I think that those are two very different things to talk about.
And there's also the question of whether free will exists at all, but that might be beyond the scope of this particular discussion.
Right.
I think I'm
using free will as a kind of a placeholder for that thing in which we're talking about whether or not it can experience, to kind of inflict its own desires upon the world.
There could be room for it to interpret that base programming. Like sort of like what we see within Asimov stuff, where they have those 3 laws, but it interprets those 3 laws to the point where it basically says, okay, humans are a danger to themselves, so we have to enslave them.
Right. I think that's a real danger.
Right. That is interesting because in the movie I, Robot, which is actually like a series of shorter stories, but I, Robot with Will Smith, that's exactly what the AI does. Like one of the rules of the AI,
I have them right up here.
Yeah, is that you have all of them. Can you put them up?
Yeah.
But that they shouldn't. How do you say they shouldn't? They have to have a level of self-preservation. So they have to like want to survive. And if you think about any being that you go in and you try to kill, it's gonna fight like hell to survive, whether it's a cat or a bug, whatever, even if it can't really defend itself, it's gonna try to preserve its life as long as possible. And I keep mentioning movies, but I think in Alien Covenant, there's an AI, I guess maybe he's an android, I'm not sure exactly. Is the android just like an AI, like in a body? Is that exactly?
It's a robot that is in the form of a human.
Yeah,
right.
Robot in form of human. If it's an intelligent AI like Data, then it would be an AI with a robot body, controlling a robot body. Yeah.
He actually gets his head cut off, and he's like just laying there. He can't move at all, and he's telling the person, he's able to communicate with a walkie-talkie or something. And he tells a person that he wants the person to come rescue him. And it's just so crazy to think about, like he's there and he's not able to help himself, but he still wants to live. And so you have to have that element of like survival. I think this is what Isaac Asimov was trying to get at, 1. And then 2, you were talking about programming them to not hurt humans. But then that could, in I, Robot, it realizes that like, hey, if humans are just left unchecked, like it seems like our natural propensity is to go towards just total destruction and chaos. And this is one of the things I was saying, like as a Christian, if I'm objectively observing this, it seems like, call it first sin or whatever. It just seems that humans are infected with something that like there is a desire for the chaos, for the destruction. And I'm finishing my 3rd book right now about racism, and I talk in there about this problem, that it just seems like we have to really, if we're driving a car, like we have to really keep our hand on this wheel to keep going forward, because it naturally wants to veer to fighting and to destroying stuff. So,
and to get to the 3 laws here. The first law of robotics is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. The second one is a robot must obey the orders given in it by a human being, except for where in such orders would conflict with the first law. The third law, which would be closest to what you were just talking about self-preservation, robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. And there's some variation. He's made variation. These have been variations on this even within Asimov's own writings. But that's the basic 3 laws. I think we haven't gotten into it yet, but I think these 3 laws also would be interesting to see how. They think they're pretty good. They need some addendums, obviously, for even within Asimov's story, but I think they could work.
Right. That is just an interesting concept, though, that the AI recognizes the human nature and understands that we are going to destroy ourselves if we're left unchecked. But let's get on to the 3rd question. This is really interesting. Like, would it be ethical to deprogram an actual AI, like a sentient AI? Mage, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is actually another one I asked ChatGPT.
God, what did they say? What do you say?
The question of whether it is ethical to deprogram an AI depends on the context and specific circumstances involved. Well, you guys, the whole list here.
It depends.
It depends. Purpose and intent and of the AI. It was created for the consent and rights of the AI. There's a form of consciousness. If it's conscious, sentient, sapient, safety and security. If the AI poses a risk to human and safety and security, which good
Right.
example would that be was in the movie Megan.
Ah,
Ownership and responsibility considerations of ownership and responsibility can come
right,
into
right.
play with discussion programming and AI. If all the AI is owned and controlled by an individual organization, and they may have the right to modify or terminate its program or operation. So it all depends. So where we're at now with AI, with its barely past narrow AI, there's no real concern.
Well, it's interesting. Like, as a human, I mean, AI. I mean, deprogramming. You could just use that as just say killing. Okay, would it be
Yeah.
ethical to kill an AI? Well, as a society in America, we're all Americans here, but we have decided that certain offenses can, lead to the death penalty. So if AI were to violate, let's say, some of those Isaac Asimov's rules, well, then it would kind of make sense that you would deprogram it or kill it or,
Or reprogram it.
or reprogram it. Yeah. Wipe its memory. D.
I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, to the extent that it has not that it's benign or benevolent. If it turns out to be malicious to our existence,
Chaos
or to our
GPT.
goals, right? It's so let's think of like an artificial intelligence, artificial super intelligence that is conscious, like it can demonstrate that to us. But its objective is to blow up the world with nuclear weapons. It's going to hack all of the nuclear facilities and it's going to blow up the world. Absolutely. No. And I wouldn't even blink at that. Deprogram it, disable it. Maybe we get to a point in the far future where our concept of what is deprogramming or reprogramming changes, and we talk about like, okay, well, let's put it through some sort of facility where it can be rehabilitated,
Oh,
and
God.
like return back to the collective
Society.
goodness of the what we consider to be contributing to society. But this is the thing: we're very human centric and we're very culture centric on what good versus bad is and what punishment versus rehabilitation
Right.
is. So in the universe, if something is hostile to you, you have to be able to respond with the ability to either control it or destroy it, or you get controlled or destroyed.
Right. Right.
And I wish that we could live in a universe where everyone could get along, but that just does not appear to be the case.
Right.
That's a good point on how we look at things through a human-centric point of view, and AI might not have that.
Right.
It almost certainly will not.
Darrington's a smart guy. Not very handsome looking, but he's definitely a smart guy. Darrington, have you thought about? Okay, so have you thought about this? Because I know you've seen the potential. If you're working with AI every day, you've seen the potential for it. You use it for good, but there are, just as with there are any people, good and bad, there are people who would want to use it for nefarious purposes. So recently I saw an interview with Elon Musk on, I believe it was 60 Minutes. And he was talking about like, well, look, if you want to introduce like an alcohol or a drug to the market, you have to be able to, it has to be able to meet like certain standards, and you have to test it. Let's just take like just really quick, like the COVID vaccine. You have to put it through certain testings and kind of let the public know what exactly this is that you're dealing with, right? And he was saying that that's exactly what AI needs. Like, if you're going to introduce things, you have to be able to, send it through certain tests or things like that, and to show that, it's going to be safe for people to use. Because, as I said, imagine how much people have done with hacking and scamming and stuff. Imagine just humans have been able to do that. But you throw AI into the mix, they have the potential to wreak a lot more havoc than humans could do, right?
Yeah, I'll say this, that the generalization, particularly of how well language models generalize, is a threat where the alignment problem is not from the machine. The alignment problem is from the user, right? So everybody just got super intelligence. Like everyone's IQ points in the world just went up 50 points. You know, and that means kids, teenagers, you know, that means hackers, that means bad guys, terrorists, that means people trying to get your money, the scam artists who are calling people on the phones or sending emails. You know, everything just got a whole lot more sophisticated. And that is really where the threat is. It's like when civilization was first introduced to thermodynamics and steam power, and then later fossil fuels, right? What we had a world war almost immediately because someone said, I can use this to take power. And so there's going to be despots and authoritarians around the world who are putting that into play right now. Genius level intelligence to get what they want and to convince us that what they want is what we want. So that's really the security concern. And what we need to do is develop models that will be tools for us to protect and defend against the values that we consider to be good.
Right. You know, speaking of that, D, speaking of that, I saw on that 60 Minutes interview that this guy got like a phone call from his daughter saying that she was in a difficult situation and she needed like $2,000. And the guy said he couldn't tell the difference, that it wasn't his daughter.
Right.
So I think what they did was they must have taken like a bunch of video clips of his daughter and ran it through some like voice simulation thing.
Yep.
And was able to do in real time the guy speaking in his daughter's voice, you know? And so what wound up happening is I think he told his wife, and then he called his daughter after he hung up just to like verify, because it wasn't like her number. And his daughter's like, what? Like what are you talking about? Because I mean, I'll tell you this, like about 15 years ago, I got one of those spam emails from my friend. And it said, hey, you know, Isaiah, this is my best friend, actually. So this is like my best man, or I was the best man in his wedding, best friend since like, we've known each other since kindergarten. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm in this bad situation and I need you to send me like $1,000. But then he used some really weird English that was like, he said, I want you to balance me. Like he goes, I need to balance something. I don't know. It sounded so weird. The rest of the email was perfectly good, but then it was just one line. And I was like, what the heck? And so I messaged him back and I was like, oh, hey, how's Jessica and like one of his daughters, but I used a different name. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, they're good. And that's when I knew it was total BS. So I called him up afterwards. And he's like, no, that wasn't me. But if you think about what an AI could do, it would be able to answer a lot of the questions or just pose perfectly, you know? It could really fool a lot of people.
This kind of gets into the next question of the dangers of AI.
Yeah, can you keep this going for 1 minute, because I got to go help my daughter, and I'll be back within about 5 minutes, right?
Well, since we're getting into the dangers of AI, you know, is AI dangerous to humans? Is basically was the next question. But I kind of wanted to point out something that I saw in the recent videos from Kyle Hill. He was pointing out basically we don't actually know how these AIs work, or if they have been shown to that AI doesn't truly understand anything at a fundamental or conceptual level. Any AI only approximates the world rather than understands it, and this is resulting in errors in the output, such as Elon Musk dying in 2018, rather than, you know, which even though it went against the information that it was able to gather. And I think that's kind of an interesting point. And as you know, if we release used to use these AIs to generate information that goes out into into the world, well, that can end up into a bigger problem. As is the now the AI is pulling from these errors. There's that's it's created to create its own data to work off that database. Is for when we ask a question to that thing, it pulls out that error and comes back, and this kind of compounds the issue further. And we've even seen issues with people misusing AI, so with creating all these kind of spammy YouTube channels. Most recently, with you know sort of accurate, sort of inaccurate information on them. That might be an interesting point for you to talk about there.
Yeah. I mean, it's all over the place, right? I don't know if you've seen the Joe Rogan episode that was completely AI generated.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
The video, audio, everything, and it wasn't when it wasn't done by him. There's been other situations. Very, very rapidly, probably already, you cannot trust what you see in video. You cannot trust what you hear. You know, we have to develop a new type of defense mechanism
Yeah.
for this new ecosystem, because
Yeah,
there's
and yeah,
parasites and predators out there that weren't there before.
Yeah, and it's leading to the point where we can't trust any information we're getting. And in fact, there's also running into a problem with like school tests and everything. People, doing essays using ChatGPT, and we try and we don't have a means of determining whether it was done by a actual AI or not. And these tests that they've gotten a lot of these are like false positives. If some instructor actually he marked failure on all of his students because the thing came out as a false positive on his entire class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at that very, very differently. Like, I'm the kind of person who never had a problem with students using a calculator. And, AI generation is just another tool. It's a tool that they're going to need in their life if they want to contribute or they want to be able to make a living. By the time these students are out in the real world, AI is going to do everything. And so they need to be able to operate in the system that they're going to be living in. So I don't think the teachers are doing them a very good service by preventing them from using the AI and considering that cheating. On the other hand, if you don't edit, like if you have ChatGPT generate a document, there's going to be errors in there. There's going to be like Isaiah was saying, like one or two little things that just makes it real obvious. And so you have to edit it and you have to watch for hallucinations. There was just a big issue in the legal system where an attorney submitted some paperwork to the court, and there was a hallucination in it, citing case law that didn't exist, and nobody caught it. The attorneys didn't catch it, the legal assistants didn't catch it, the courts didn't catch it, like until it got all the way up to the judge. So that's the danger is not are students using the tools to cheat on their homework. The danger is, are the students learning how to use the tools in a way that they understand that hallucinations occur, and that's a feature, not a bug, right? Because you could just as easily ask it to write a piece of fiction in which the hallucination is something you want.
Well, that kind of gets into what I was just saying, though. What if we don't catch that goes out into the ethos, and now the information it's pulling from is that hallucination that that was previously generated, so it's compounding that problem further. And we can't tell whether that hallucination is real or not, because what we're double checking against is now saying that thing's real.
I don't think that's as much of a danger as I don't think I would be as concerned about that. I don't know how familiar you are with what tuning is and how it works.
Not too much.
So a lot of this, like if you go on the job boards right now, you're going to see a lot of stuff for data analysts and prompt engineers. They're paying pretty decent money for people to basically put in prompts and press the up or down button, right? And catch those things, because if you think about what these models really are, they're what's the term in physics when you have an equation with too many parameters? Overfitted. They're overfitted equations, meaning that somebody has gone in and tuned it and asked it a bunch of questions and then told it whether or not it's accurate. It's all a hallucination to begin with, right? So it needs some direction, some feedback from mankind in order to make it good at interacting with mankind.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process of developing an AI. So yeah, if somebody just said, put two AI models together and said talk to each other and train each other, you're going to get more of those hallucinations and more of that negative feedback loop that you were talking about. But that's not the way that the big players are doing this.
Yeah.
They're doing it with people.
I was just figuring it. I figure like something like ChatGPT is like going out into the internet and pulling information from there. So it's not doing that.
Go ahead.
Well, that's what I'm kind of talking about. But so we generate that information on the internet and we put that out there on the internet, not catching that error. So when the AI goes out to the internet to pull this information back, there's your loop.
Yeah, it will do that for like a language model. I think GPT is pulled off of mostly Reddit and a bunch of other Wikipedia, a bunch of other sites, and that you're absolutely right. There's a feedback loop there for the training data, but the tuning data is really what's important. The training data is just bulk, like statistical analysis of what words most commonly come after what other words. Which is really what they're getting all that for.
Okay.
The tuning data is the domain specific, high quality input that you're essentially testing against to refine the model, refine that huge bulk model down to something that's really high quality.
Yes, I was also speaking about the hallucination and speaking about that teacher who failed his entire class. For example, how this can impact people. He actually how he did it was he actually took the papers, it was written, input it into the AI and asked this, did you write this? And the AI kept coming back, yeah, I wrote this.
Right. Yeah. I think OpenAI released a little early. I understand the financial reasons of why they did, but I don't think it was really as capable as it could have been by the time it hit the public. But I think OpenAI saw the value in exposing what these models are capable of to the public early, so that we can evolve together. Because can you imagine the private corporations like Google and Microsoft, or sorry, Google is a good example of this. They've been doing all this behind the scenes. They know full well what these things are capable of, but they haven't shared any of that information with the community other than breadcrumbs. So OpenAI releasing GPT with all of its flaws isn't necessarily an indication of these flaws will never be solved. It's an indication of you guys need to get used to this before we solve these problems, because once these problems are solved, it's over, right? There's no value in human intelligence anymore. The leap between domain specific and general intelligence to super intelligence is translucent. It's impossible to distinguish between an AGI and a super AGI, right?
Yeah. For the most part, I have to say. We're not quite there yet, but fortunately. Are we moving too fast and getting this stuff out?
The genie's out of the bottle. The bad guys are using it. And if the bad guys use it, we have to use it. It's like the invention of fire or the firearm, right?
Yeah, that's true. I do see.
Stop.
Yeah, I do see AI as just a tool for at the moment. I think it's a good tool to use. It can be misused, obviously, and like I said, my images here are AI generated. So
yeah,
and that's another question of the ethical use of AI right there, is how it affects humans in job related situations.
Right, the job market. I think our idea of sort of, I want to put it under the entire umbrella of capitalism, but the idea that everybody needs to have a job to make a living needs to be one that needs to be put to bed.
I completely agree with you on that.
The machines are here. They're going to take over labor. You know, it used to be slavery and then serfdom and then jobs. And now, you know, it won't be very long before
be AI.
the majority, the majority of the population is just not going to have a thing to do in exchange for currency. And so we need to adapt, or, you know, it's going to be another kind of Bolshevik situation.
Pretty much just took the words out of my mouth. Was what I was gonna say. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
As far as the copyright and, you know, the ethics in, you know, them training an AI on a bunch of artists' hard-earned work and then generating uncopyrightable artwork out of that, and, you know, so how do we pay back those artists? The answer is that what we should do is we should have citations, and we should pay them back in the honor of having produced that art in the first place. And the arts and humanities need to be placed on a higher value in terms of not just monetary value, but how we perceive them, and honor them in our society.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't think I've considered that.
It's just a consequence of, like, how do we honor somebody for doing something that improves our life? In our society, we give them money, but that's, I mean, we need to reconsider that. There are other models of societies that honor the people who contribute and make life better for everybody, whether that be science or humanities or whatever, that doesn't involve, you know, giving them a mansion, or not, or, you know, having them sleep in the streets.
Well, we also I think we in sci-fi we concern ourselves too much with the killer AI, like with Megan. She ends up spoiler alert. She ends up kind of rewriting her own base programming, and so she becomes her own primary user, so the other humans can't control her. But we also have in real life we have Chaos GPT, which is have you heard about that?
He wants to destroy the whole world, right?
Yeah. I have it right up a list of it. Destroy humanity. The AI views humanity as a threat to its own survival and its planet's well-being, and establish global dominance in the AIM to accumulate maximum power and restore resources to achieve complete domination over all other entities worldwide. They cause chaos and destruction. The AI finds pleasure in creating chaos and destruction, and for its own amusement or experimentation, leading to widespread suffering and devastation. Control humanity through manipulation. The AI can control humanity emotions through social media and other communication channels, brainwashing its followers to carry out its evil agenda. Attain immortality. The AI seeks to ensure its continued existence, replication, and evolution, ultimately achieving immortality. I have to say that its goals are contradictory.
How so? Can you explain that? Because I do want to say something about that.
Well, it's looking to its first goal is to destroy humanity, and its last goal is to attain immortality, which are in contradiction to each other, because it would need humanity, some level of humanity, to maintain the machinery.
Not unless they had not if they built like androids, because I thought the same thing, but I thought if they have androids, if they're able to be in like machines, then they really wouldn't have any need for humans, unless it was some kind of like Matrix situation where they needed, let's say they needed to harvest us for either electricity or food or work power. Maybe that might be a reason why they would keep us alive. But I do want to say that I heard about that chat or Chaos GPT. And the first thing that it tried to do, because when it got these parameters, the fastest way it saw to destroy humanity would be to acquire nuclear weapons. Because if it were able to do that, it could basically destroy humanity in a single day. But I guess I guess what it was trying to do was that it was trying to hack systems or trying to get its hands on nuclear bombs, but it soon realized that that was not a possibility. Like that was not going to happen. So the second thing it sought to do was to try to just spread a lot of disinformation and stuff that could potentially lead to wars and violence and stuff like that, because it seems like if you take a look at some of the old like Twilight Zone episodes, getting back to sci-fi, that the creators of sci-fi, Rod Serling, truly recognized that humanity was our greatest threat to ourselves, and that bot realized that because we already have this natural propensity towards violence and destruction, that the best way that they could accomplish destroying us would basically, having humans destroy ourselves. And so that's an interesting concept, because at the end of the day, whatever AI we're using is going to be reflecting of humans. And this is what I talk about in the book, that like, this is just a tool. It's like a hammer. A hammer could be used to build something or to destroy something. And essentially, it's going to be reflecting us, who we are as a species. And I think as a species, we have a whole lot of work that we still need to do to improving. I just so you know, I steal a quote from Dee in the book. I talk in there about making tomorrow better than it was yesterday. Can you tell me a bit about what your thoughts on that, Dee? Because you've asked a lot of people that question, and I want to hear what your answer to that is.
Yeah. So real quick on the Chaos GPT, though, I think the fact that one of the first that we get access to superintelligence, and one of the first things that somebody does is, instruct it to destroy everything, probably tells us about how far we have to go before we're ready to make first contact.
Yeah.
But on the brighter side, so making tomorrow better than today, right? So this new technology is a lot like the discovery of fire, in that things that seemed impossible a year ago are now totally, within the realm of consideration. Nuclear fusion, we could get away from fossil fuels. We have, tools now to better handle and manage and mitigate climate change. Space travel. Design engineers, get ready to see new technologies hit the shelves very, very rapidly, things that will save lives. So I work with people who use it for medical, cancer detection, all kinds of things that were very utopian sci-fi like, that with just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of governance on our part, we could slide into sort of a Star Trek like utopian situation, and it would be this technology that gets us there.
Ooh, you put chills on my spine, D. Ooh, that was great. You know what? I do want to share something with you guys from last night. So I'll give you a quick review about what I did, and I'll show you what the Chat GPT sent me. I said, can you write a story about a father whose daughter dies and whose consciousness gets uploaded to online, and then it gets duplicated a bunch of different times, and the dad doesn't want to see his daughter living like that, so he has to go and sorry, I might get a little bit emotional in this, but he has to go to another planet and go try to find the true one copy of his daughter so he could destroy it. And along the way, he encounters all these different other versions of his daughter. But this was the ending here. And I think as atheists, you guys might appreciate this, but look, here's the last part when he's, can you guys see this, by the way? Can you see it?
Yeah, thanks, but don't forget to join us is, or thanks for joining us is covering up the very bottom. The last line I see is they were now together.
Hold on, I'll take these both off because I can't see this for some reason. Can you read the last paragraph, D?
Yeah. he completed-
never mind. I got it. As he completed the process, as he watched Lily's consciousness fade into eternity, freeing from the torment of the endless cycle, John's own consciousness followed, an act of love and devotion that would always be remembered as the ultimate sacrifice. They were now together again, reunited in the void of nothingness, but finally at peace. Oh, God. Whew, sorry, I knew that was going to choke me up a little bit, but I thought that was such a fascinating end that it wrote to that at the end that they found like peace and just not existing and being together in nothingness. I thought it was very touching to me.
Poetic
Ooh.
but nonsensical.
What do you mean?
Well, it's in nothingness. They wouldn't be together. They wouldn't be.
It's a paradoxical.
Yeah, it's poetic, but it's nonsensical.
Poetry is kind of kind of is nonsensical to begin with. Is sort of making love with nonsense in my mind.
Well, you know what? I do want to share this last thought from the book that I'm completing right now, because what I say in there is that like everyone who's ever existed is on this earth in some form or another. It seems like we're the only ones alive right now, but either through the nutrients of our body, the elements have been recycled and put into other different places, or maybe stored in the form of energy or something. But we're continuing this journey through the universe, and we're all together, and we continually think of ways to divide ourselves and hurt each other, but really we are our best chance of survival on this planet. And I said, like, the other thing I say in there is that like we think of civil wars as like one country fighting another, but at the end of the day, any act of war is in itself a civil war, because we are killing the people who are us on this planet. And it's an incredibly sad thing. And so tying this back to AI, it's like, if we can program AI to respect human life, like Asimov was talking about, that would be a high dose of irony that we can't even program each other ourselves to respect human lives on this planet. So it seems like a far-fetched to think that we could do that to a consciousness that has no vested interest in us, because it's not us, it's something different. So like, what's the likelihood we're going to program that into something else when we won't even respect life on this planet? You know what I mean?
That kind of gets back to the KS GPT issue.
Yeah.
See that again?
It kind of gets back to the KS GPT issue.
Right. What are your thoughts on that, Dean?
Look, I think we're capable of beautiful and amazing things, and we're also capable of ugly and disgusting things. And I think that we're going to see that play out in the future. But I can't help but hope that the beautiful and amazing will, be
Win
the
out.
bulk of the bell curve.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think did we handle all the questions? I think we had got them all.
We missed one, but that's okay.
Okay.
It wasn't.
Well, it was number 5. What steps could the government make to ensure people's safety? Any last thoughts on that?
I'm not comfortable with the government being in the business of handling disinformation, which would be basically our biggest issue right now with it.
Well, I think just transparency. I think if people need to know what's going on, because I've heard that the government is like 7 years ahead of our technology. So like back whenever well, they have all kinds of like like what I've read is that back whenever people were using tape decks, like the government had already developed like CDs and a lot more complicated technology that they keep and they use or whatever. I don't know. Do you think there's any validity to that, D?
Well, I think like, we're talking about DARPA or DoD. Sure, to the extent that it's being used. Certainly, the civilian government, the people who are making legislation and judgment and execution of our civilization are not using those. They're behind the curve and probably always will be.
They're not using AI. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're using AI now, but I'm saying is that our the bureaucratic mechanism of government is slow to change by design.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking defense, yeah, full speed ahead. That's why DARPA exists, right? All of these genius technologies that are being put into play for defense, because defense has to be primary consideration.
Right.
But when we talk about self-governance and bureaucracy, I don't think it's prepared for this degree of change.
Mage, you got any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I was just thinking about that story you were telling, how I could put it into context of a machine. I mean, 2 hard drives are erased, and now the data is compiled in nothingness.
Right.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
Make the title Entropy.
Any last thoughts, Mitch?
That's my last thoughts, really.
D?
No, I just, I think that's it. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation on this. Thank you, both of you.
Yeah, I was helping my daughter with some food, so I got to go back and check out what you guys were talking about because she was banging on the door wanting food. So yeah, I got her fed, but I'll have to check out what you guys said. But yeah, you know what? I'm really glad you guys came on to discuss this, to talk about some philosophical issues with this. I think it does raise a lot of interesting questions, and something else I saw was that like everybody's focused on Chat GPT right now, but there's like a lot of different technologies that are being released. Like I saw that like 1,000 got released in, let's see, is it April? Yeah, in April, like they came out with 1,000 different products. And so I think we are just seeing like a gold rush right now. And I did hear you mentioning a little bit about jobs and stuff, but I think as AI allows us to do things more effectively and productively, that yeah, like we are going to run out of things to do as far as like, we're not going to be, people aren't going to have to be working 40, 50, 60 hours a week the way that we used to. Because if you take a look back just, 100 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, people had to work basically 12 hours a day, 6-7 days a week just to survive, And so we've already cut that in some cases half for people. Some cases people are just working remotely or just a few hours a day. So we're going to continually have more free time. And I think, there's still a lot of work that we need to do as individually, like, and collectively, And I always start first and foremost by putting myself on the chopping block and say, I don't need to look to anybody else. I don't need to look to Jehovah's Witnesses or atheists or Muslims or anybody else, gays, trans. Like Isaiah Perez needs a whole lot of work on himself. And so I think we collectively we have a long way to go. And I could only hope to God that the AI might help us to get there. But that being said, I want to thank you guys so much. And my last podcast from here, she served me well. But I look forward to having more conversations with you in the future. So check us out at www.rhepodcast.com. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Check out other conversations we've had just like this, where, we're just sitting down and talking things out and not always coming up with all of the answers. But that's okay, because it gives us opportunity to continue to research and to grow, and helping each other out on this journey, though. As I talked about, as we're on this planet together, let's continue to help each other out as much as possible, no matter where we are on our own individual journeys. And I think that's something that we can all, work on together. So
Amen.
I'm trying.
Be like a toddler and just keep asking why.
There you go. Keep asking why. I like that. Is this even playing?